Hey guys, welcome back to another Vanguard video. In a bit of a rush to make this video, so instead I'm just screen sharing Twitter, and I know I'm pretty late to this news as well. So we have reprints for friend Chet from Lyrical DZ set 2, as well as the Aqua Senna ride line, which is pretty big. So you have other options besides the Willista ride line, but some decks still really do love the Willista ride line. So still nice to see it though, and it's double rare rarity, not re-rarity, which is nice, because that means you'll get a decent amount from your case ratios. We also have LSR Fennel, but we are here to talk about this right here, which are the promos. So if you actually go to Kairos' highlights, do check them out on Twitter if you haven't already. You can see that they have a lot of stuff pinned here, as well as the threads for each monthly shop promos if you ever need to find that information. But we're here to talk about them, and they're mainly the Harri and Nightrose ones, and we got a bunch of other really good promos. I think this promo pack is probably the most cracked promo pack we've had in like a long time. I know I'm saying cracked in 2025, but like seriously, these cards are amazing for their decks, and they really do step them up. I don't know if they necessarily make them meta, but they certainly are very good quality of life cards that do make them a lot more relevant than they were before. Like, these are basically almost custom made promos for these decks, to exaggerate it a bit. But anyways, first off, we have the Harri order, the Great Illusion, where the Crescent Moon shines. Important to note, it's a grade 3, so 2 can tutor this out into Soul, and then of course you just Soul Blast it out to get into drop, because it has the ability very similar to High 5 and, you know, the Nebula Knight order, that this card can be played from drop. And crazy, there's no cost for this. It's just a free card. Anyways, so it basically is your free once per turn normal order play if you do play it from drop. You can play this if you have Mass Magician Harri Crest, so you can't really put these in other decks, obviously. Therefore, the Stride deck sets, you bind this card and perform one of the following. So there are some nations that can empty bind. Bell was banned, so we know, you can't really do that for the Stoicheia order when we look at the Nightrose one. Dark States right now doesn't really have a way to empty bind, but in the future, Bushield's very careful when they come to designing standard and emptying bind. Anyways, back to the card. Bind this card, perform one of the following. You look at the top 7 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 card from among them, put it into your Soul, shuffle your deck, and your Vanguard gets +5 until end of turn. So instant tutoring out of deck into Soul, which is really nice, because really your only other really easy way to do this right now is the Ace unit, and of course that's once per game. And then the other effect is choose a card from your Soul, call to Rearguard Circle, gets +5 until end of turn. So you're tutoring deck into Soul, or you're getting a free call from Soul giving +5. And this can matter if you do want to call out, let's say, like Chimera, and have that extra, 23 poke on your first stride turn before you start putting out other things, because you're only doing 4 attacks on your first stride. Then the other ability is auto when discarded from hand while paying the cost per stride. Choosing your Vanguards or Hearts until end of turn, reduce the next counterblast by 1 for that card's ability. So on your first stride for Harri, this is going to be the on stride cost to call from Soul, and I believe it's Soul Charge, might be wrong on that. And then for your Masquerade Harri, that's going to be making your basically second stride free, which is really nice, because you don't have too much of a CB problem. You still probably want the one Amethyst to CC, but kind of hard to say. I haven't looked at Harri list in a while, but still this card is really strong. Very simple, does a lot for the deck. And of course, because 2 can tutor this out, it's easy to Soul Blast and get into drop. And with that extra other abilities, usually you do want to like ditch, your usual fodder in order to get that draw one when you stride. You're not Tercios, blah, 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 those kind of ditch fodder cards. But because you have Primordial Heartblaze, which also, by the way, can be get into Soul other ways, through Ace unit and whatnot, and Soul Blast it out, which is really strong. And I believe Primordial Heartblaze is also a grade 3, so 2 can also tutor it. It is just really easy to have a lot of counterblast built up for Harri. So Harri doesn't really have a CB problem anymore, which is really good for the deck. Really strong, though I do think you do want to be playing this every turn from drop, because it's just free filtering, and that is, the point of this. Every turn you are basically getting free filter from deck or a call from Soul, which is really strong. So is this necessarily going to make Harri meta? Does this really solve, some of the problems that Harri had, such as like CB issues, deck out still kind of a problem sometimes, especially in some grindy games in standard, but really nice that Harri basically doesn't have a CB problem anymore because of this. Plus, you got Amethyst plus Primordial Heartblaze. So I think Harri looks a lot stronger than before. Not necessarily meta, it's kind of hard to say. I think the best stride deck sets right now are still like Shiranui, Nightrose, Luard, especially because, Shiranui and Luard should be in line to get their new strides eventually in a main set, from the pattern that we saw from, when we got the Generation Genesis, the upgraded Chronos Command, and I'm forgetting the other stride from Asai. But anyways, well, the point is that these are really good, and they should eventually get new Vanguards. Eventually, we don't know when. But yeah, kind of yapping along, but this card is just amazing quality of life for the deck. So the next card is the Nightrose card, and it's basically the same thing except you get to mill one. So order effect, this card can be played from drop. You can play this if you have a Vampire Princess of Nightrose, Nightfog, Nightrose Crest. Bind this card, perform one of the following. You look at the top 7 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 card from among them, discard it, shuffle your deck, your Vanguard gets +5. Selective mill is amazing in Nightrose. We know this deck is super strong for that, especially for the hostage build as well. If you really have to, you could mill a PG, call it, and then, hostage it off if you really have to. You could also mill Ghost Chase, Alvina, grab that back to hand. You can mill your, lazies if you have to in order to countercharge. Like, there's so much just toolboxing that Nightrose and Standard can still do. And the deck is still pretty strong as long as you can get to that second stride farm and really just, keep outgrinding your opponent and being able to just, abuse PGs over and over, very similar to Zorga. So very strong card just from that alone. And of course, this card is free. And then choose a card for your drop you call to Rearguard Circle. This is the secondary effect, and it gets power +5 until end of turn. So just more rezzing, and then of course it has the discount effect. So if you did want to use Nightrose's effect, give let's say +2 to a booster, have it be 10k or call Philander or whatever back from drop, you can basically discount that and make it free, which is nice as well, saving you a little bit extra CB. Not that there really was too much of an option, problem for CC in terms of Nightrose, because you had lazy to have that easy CC, but it's more toolboxing for the deck and really just extra fried fodder as well. And being able to play a free order every turn on stride just to selectively deck thin one or get a free call from drop is a lot stronger than you would think. It's basically like they're giving the Nebula Knight order to all the stride deck sets now, which is crazy. So I think in their respective decks they're really strong. And of course, when you mill this off anything, Philander, Obadiah skill, whatever, you just get this set up to play from drop. So very good synergy in both their respective decks. Crazy. They basically gave them a Nebula Knight order for each. And of course, you have that option to choose between each effect, whichever one you need. So really strong, honestly. Is it making it like meta, especially in DZ set 11? Kind of hard to say. We still don't really know. I think stride deck sets really do want to go second, obviously, to get that power. And there is a lot of variation in terms of like grade 2 gaming. Sometimes you get CB denied. But I mean, Nightrose and Harri, their strides don't need CB in order to flip. So they're perfectly fine with just chill farming, doing 3-4 swings. I mean, Nightrose isn't doing 4 swings, it's doing 3. But, Harri can do those 4 swings. But anyways, enough yapping about the deck sets. I've kind of said my piece. But do let me know what you think of these cards. I think they're very simple, but do a lot of great utility for the deck. That basically just adds onto all the tools that they already had. Alright, so now for the next promo, we have Judgement, Dragon, Vegaldial. So continuous, if you have a Vanguard with only Shadow Paladin for its clan, this card is only from Shadow Paladin, so this is basically PBO support. It could work, I guess, in Luard, but it has really bad synergy with Luard, spoilers. So auto, when this card is placed on Rearguard Circle, if you have Vanguard with Blaster in this card name, cost, put a card from hand into your soul, draw one. This unit gets +5 until end of turn. So this is easy way to get your, PBOs into soul, or sorry, your Phantom Blaster Dragons into soul, and get PBO set up to have that crit and power easily. So really nice, and it's easy cycle draw turn 3. So continuous Rearguard Circle, the third skill, when this unit would be retired for the cost of ability for Vanguard with Blaster in its card name, regard it as retiring 2 units. So you have basically 2 things that count as 2 units, so easy retire for the deck. And then auto, when retired from Rearguard Circle, by the ability for your Vanguard with Blaster in its card name, cost energy +3. Choose a Blaster Dark in Rearguard Circle, it gets auto Rearguard Circle once per turn. When it attacks, this unit performs stride check until end of battle. At the end of the battle, retire this unit until end of turn. So amazing, you get even more drive checks in PBO. If I'm not wrong, I believe there is a way to set up the double drive check ability, but I think it's a little bit too awkward because this has to be retired by your Vanguard specifically. So I think the deck is still only doing 4 drives, not 5. I do have to double check that. But just first impressions from this card, it's like very custom. It sets up PBO, soul. It counts as double retire, so you don't have to kill off, 2 rears. Not that PBO didn't already have that, but it's just more quality of life for the deck. And of course, more easier drive checks instead of having to do the extra steps with the old promo to get Blaster Dark performing those drive checks. So pretty strong. And then of course, once you do get that ability, you do have the promo to change it to Twin Drive. I just don't believe this sets up 5 drives, but I probably should have double checked before I did the impressions for this. But do let me know, PBO mains, what this does change for the decks. I do think it does read like a custom card, but I'm not sure it's really saving PBO. But it does do a lot. Like, it's double fodder. And I really, like, PBO hasn't gotten support in such a long time because MLB got Blaster Blade the Vanguard, and then we had Overlord getting, Scarlet Phlegm, the Skyride promo, which was pretty strong. So I'm really surprised it took this long, and it's a promo. specifically for PBO. At least it's a shop tournament promo, so there should be a lot of it out there in circulation. But do let me know what you think of this promo. I think it's pretty strong just on its own, and being able to get easy accessibility for drive checks instead of having to like kind of feed more into the cost is really nice. So next up is Pure Sphere Dragon Zelguogen. So auto when placed on Vanguard Circle, choose up to 1 grade 2 or less card from your drop and call to Vanguard Circle. If you called a unit with either Nymph or Hermit in its card name, so basically the Dragon Empire Nymph package, reduce the next counterboss cost you pay for that unit's auto ability by 1, so essentially making like your checked out vibe orders and whatnot basically free. Auto Vanguard Circle, when you play Wondrous Melodies, you search your deck or drop for up to 1 unit with either Nymph or Hermit's card name, called to Vanguard Circle, you search your deck, shuffle the deck. So basically a built-in package, and then also free deck filter and a CB reduce for this generic package. So they literally just, design that generic Dragon Empire package and said like, whatever, we'll just make a boss unit for it. Then auto Vanguard Circle, once per turn, at the end of the battle, this unit's attack costs either Cost 1 or put 2 Wondrous Melodies from your drop on the bottom of the deck, so you can put the order back. Stand this unit and it gets power plus 5, drive minus 2 until end of turn, and if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 greater, it also gets drive plus 1. So it's like discount wearable Varga, except you have no board retire. So really the gimmick with Nymph and Hermits is just to find your pieces in the deck and make board. So this basically supports that and basically discounts the cost completely. So it's essentially free, but not completely free, and you still have Latif and other things, so I'm sure it'll be really easy to make a board, but it does really seem like they want to push the playstyle for this Vanguard specifically, where you are playing these 2 cards and not a bunch of generics. But I mean, Latifah can always be good in a deck that plays orders, because you'll just make a board every turn. But yeah, regardless, really funny that they made a boss unit for this generic Dragon Empire package that I thought they honestly forgot about, but it's here, and it does get the extra drive plus 1, so it's like, it really is just like discount Varga. But except this condition is a lot easier and, isn't once per game. If your opponent's grade 3 greater, when you take second and like make a board, maybe this deck could be really niche if it goes second and like kind of, makes board really easy, rushes down your opponent, and then hope your like 3 drives on your turn 3 are enough to like end the game somehow. But you don't really have easy front row power besides like the Nymph Rears that are getting power. So it's kind of hard to say. It's just really weird that this is like a random promo boss that they just threw in. The next card is a promo custom card for D-Robos, aka for Daikaiser. So auto when this card is discarded from hand during your turn. If you have Vanguard with Dimensional Robo in its card name, energy charge 2. Weird, it's only discard and not when shoved to soul, like for the costs of, Dayusha and whatnot, or Daikaiser, but, it is what it is, I guess. Then auto soul when your Vanguard stands by card ability if you have 2 cards with Dimensional Robo in its card name. Cost bind this card, and your Vanguard's drive becomes 1 until end of turn. Can still be modified after this effect, Kairos is just noting. And then if your Vanguard D-Legion this turn, all your front row power with all your front row rears with Dimension Robo in their card names get power plus 5 until end of turn. So unfortunately, this power 5k is locked to D-Legion, which really hurts. So going first, it can't really is usable, which sucks. And going first, you're kind of still just like swing passing because you can't D-Legion, so you won't have the 2 Vanguards for the drive minus 1. So like, this card is amazing for the deck. It does help Daikaiser's scamming go up a bit. The extra drive and plus 5k will go really far. But, your power to your board was already decent enough with Dayusha. So, really, this feels like them kind of buffing the deck after they nerfed it with the errata, where they basically made it so that, like, Dayusha's drives also were set to 0 because the mate and leader are referenced, as well as, here they're saying all your Vanguard's drives. So, both the mate and the leader their drive is becoming well. Mostly it only matters for the leader, but the point is you get that 1 extra drive, so you are doing twin into 1 on Daikaiser, which is really good for the deck, but I don't think it's necessarily going to push it that much. But this card, when I read it, does definitely read like a very custom card that was made to make the deck good, but I'm not too sure, because I think if you, in terms of just scam decks, you could just be playing, Blangmire instead of Daikaiser instead, and you'll probably go a little bit farther, especially because you have that Sentinel restrict, which is so strong. So hard to say. I think definitely this will make people pick back up D-Robos again. I hope they really do, but I'm not too sure if it would really bring Daikaiser back into relevance, especially with all of this basically being locked to like, D-Legion, where you had to be, able to D-Legion that turn to basically get the full effects of the card. Alright, the last card is the Marlean promo. So it has, when wrote upon by grade 3 card with Marlean in its card name, you call this card to Rearguard Circle, then continuous Rearguard Circle. If you have a grade 3 greater Vanguard with Marlean in its card name, gets plus 5. Your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 greater, gets plus 10. Also active on opponent's turn, so it's just a giant beater. Then auto Rearguard Circle at the end of the battle that this unit attacked. If you have a grade 3 greater Vanguard with Marlean in its card name, you cost, but this card is your soul. and put a card with Marlean in its card name from your drop or bind zone on the bottom of your deck and draw a card. So this is relevant for the Downer and Marlean promo because it does bind itself, so you can essentially send that back to deck and then search them off Marlean's CB1 skill, which is super strong. So very straightforward card, basically helping you reuse your Marleans that you did have to bind, the Downer one specifically, because then you can search it back with your grade 3 CB1 search, whichever one, or you could search Persona Ride, whichever one you have to. It's just usually you're not binding your Persona Rides, you're binding the Downer Marlean for that +5 power to your front row, which is still pretty strong. So unfortunately, we don't know when we're getting that promo in English, but I think this is still a decent buff to Marlean, and of course you could also play this in Ride Line, but I personally feel like Marlean still probably wants the Ballista Ride Line just for that easy aggro. Usually the list that I saw, at least from what I've seen, don't actually use Tirgris because you rather have the normal units and the consistency. But, you know, in terms of Ballista Ride Line, that Ride Line is just still so good. So this is probably just to make it a little bit more budget, but, you know, it's just really interesting that they printed that extra effect to have the Rotopod call to Regret Circle. And then, of course, you'll get that free cycle because, you know, free soul draw 1 is really good. Sorry, not free soul. You get the free bot deck of returning the Downer Marlean and then drawing 1. And then the reprints are Direful Doll Pelagia, which is basically the piece for getting cards into bind for dolls, so you can get that as a foil now, which is really nice to bling out the deck. Fluctuate Buster Barage, if you really want this in the future, still one of the strongest blitz orders in the game, arguably is still really good, usable in Vice, sometimes in Prison, and other random things, sometimes Ava, but Ava's usually on Freezing Wave now. And then you have the Undercover Bouncing 10k Shield of Tirgris here. So that pretty much does it for the video. I think this promo pack is definitely one of the strongest ones we've had in a while. If you just ignore like this, everything else is like really good. Like these cards are just amazing and do so much for the deck. This just felt like this was thrown in, honestly. Like this boss, I don't know where this came from. This is still really good support for Marlean. I think Marlean still has really good rears because they have access to Lyrical generics and really good cards, especially really good pitch fodder specifically. So, you know, I think these decks will be perfectly fine, and these promos are also really good if you want to get them in foil. So, yeah, I think I yapped way too much. This video is probably like 15 to 20 minutes yet once I check OBS. But yeah, sorry that I didn't really have time to edit this, and my voice has kind of been dying this week, so I hope things get better by the weekend and I can get the other video edited. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy, do like, subscribe, that stuff. Do let me know what you think of the promos. I kind of probably talked too much about these Stride deck sets ones because I felt like those were the most important one. If I were to rank them, it would probably be definitely the Stride deck set ones. I think the Daikaiser one is really big, but I don't think it really patches up the weaknesses of the deck. It still definitely loses to Sanct OT Guarding because it can't break Sanct OT. And yeah, that deck still kind of sometimes struggles in the early game as well. Really depends on your build. I know some people are playing Camera Chan to supplement that in Daikaiser. The PBO one is like really cracked as well, and I think the Marlean one is alright just because Marlean has access to Lyrical generics, and I don't know why this thing is here. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you again in another video.